Hello, family. In this past year, we had to make so many adjustments, changes that we had not anticipated. To say that it was hard would be an understatement. Yet I have to say, the good things that came out of the season far outweigh the challenges and hardships we had to face. Here are just a few words that describe the season we have been in. Discovery. We got to discover many things about ourselves, our relationships, our priorities, and our habits, both good and bad. It's also been a season of pruning. When God prunes us, it hurts because we have to lose a part of ourselves that are still alive. Sifting and shifting. God's been shaking everything that can be shaken, including His church. Our families have been shaken. Many of our old traditions and activities that we thought were essential have been all shaken to the core. Then there are some significant shifting going on even at this moment, as the world is opening up and the church is planning to gather again. I don't think we can simply go back to the way things used to be. I believe that God is leading us through a season of another shift or change that will prepare us for the next season. I know changes are hard, uncomfortable, and disruptive, but it is also God's way of renewing and reviving us. Today, I want to share some of those changes that we're about to go through. These changes are not something I decided on a whim. Our staff, our elder board, and our congregational leaders have spent weeks seeking together the Lord and going over some of these changes you're about to hear. It's gone through multiple revisions. We looked at every possible scenario, and we're not making these changes just for the sake of changing. Instead, we are embracing some of these new ideas because we believe that God has something better for us. So let me walk you through what our Saturday and Sunday gatherings will look like in the next season. Effective May 9th, we will continue to live stream our Sunday worship over 2 hours. The first hour will start at 9:45 a.m. with Cantonese congregation in the sanctuary. The second hour will begin at 11:15 a.m. with All-Gen, which I'll explain in a moment. And our Mandarin congregation will meet at the same time in the chapel. As you may have guessed, all our youth will join our second hour English worship in the sanctuary, and I hope the parents will make every effort to bring them. We will also have smaller gatherings or trainings in the youth room for the youth who come in the first hour. Kids Church will move to downstairs for both hours and meet in the D building. Let me explain the reasoning behind some of these changes. We've been so used to the idea of leaving the responsibility of shepherding and discipling our next generation to just a few experts, such as youth pastors or children ministers, and a handful of volunteers. That is needed at times, but it really takes more than just a few trained experts to raise up our next generation. It is really the responsibility of the whole church. Now, studies have proven that young people who had significant adults in their lives have a far greater chance of continuing in their faith and also becoming mature and effective leaders when they leave the place of their upbringing. It's convenient to bring our young people and just drop them off in their own church programs. But we also have to be intentional in modeling our faith and our core beliefs and values to the next generation. We made a big shift 5 years ago to create that family worship in 2 English worship services. But over the years, the adults prefer the first hour, whereas the most of our youth ended up going to the second service with just a few adults scattered in the room. This change is really to refine our vision of making our worship really a multi-generational experience. So this all-generation worship is not just for the English congregation. We're hoping that our Cantonese families and Mandarin families who are able to worship in English will consider joining the second hour worship that is made up of our elderly, middle-aged, college and young adults, and also our youth, as young as our junior hires. Now, we will continue to evaluate and refine this new schedule, but our plan is to welcome you back on June 20th, which is the Father's Day. We will continue to live stream our worship for those who may not be ready to return to in-person worship. But the live stream will be for the worship in the sanctuary and chapel, and there will be no live streaming for kids' church or the first hour youth gathering. Now, let's talk a little bit about our Saturdays. Before the pandemic, we had 40 plus small groups trying to fight for a room in our church campus every Saturday evening. It was convenient because we had our youth fellowship as well as our very exciting children program all happening at the same time. Now, I love seeing our campus full of people on Saturdays and Sundays. But if that's all we do as a church, we will become irrelevant and useless to our neighbors around us. God in this season has really blurred the definition of local and global in this past year. Small groups had to learn how to care for one another through Zoom. Our Mandarin brothers and sisters have seized the opportunity, and their Sunday school is reaching people out of state and even from different parts of the world. So exciting. So we're encouraging all of our small groups to meet continually on a weekly basis, if not bi-weekly, at least through Zoom, and potentially offsite in your homes or coffee shops or even restaurants. In the meantime, we're reserving both the sanctuary and the chapel for our youth on Saturday evenings. And they will continue to meet weekly from 7 to 8:30 p.m. on the campus. For our children, they will meet only on the first and the third Saturday of each month. We're asking the small groups and fellowships that have children of mixed age, that is preschool, elementary, and youth, to consider meeting at church campus on the same first and the third Saturday. For families that have youth only, please consider meeting on the second and the fourth Saturdays. And the groups that do not have young children or youth will get to meet once a month on our church campus. Our church office will be working with our small group leaders to help your group to reserve rooms in the coming weeks. And our plan at the moment is to have the campus ready for you on June 20, the Father's Day. For in-person worship, in-person small groups, we're also going to try to really open up the space for all of you to be able to return. Now, this is a lot of information in one video. We will have all the details in our church website as well as in our family updates. But I want to remind you that this new meeting schedule alone will not change anything. We will eventually get used to the new schedule and move on. We have to be intentional and vigilant. If I can summarize the lessons God has taught us in this past year in just a few words, it's how we do family well. I'm not just talking about our physical family, but a spiritual one as well. We've also valued everything big, large, mega, but God is teaching us how to grow small. Those two words do not really go well together, but time and time again, God reminds us that the kingdom of God grows through small things, small people, and small gatherings, even small ministries. Finally, as we plan to gather together again, we must also learn to scatter. God has shown us that His church can thrive without buildings or big stages, programs, and conferences. In fact, He's the one who has driven us out of our church buildings and have taught us how to be the church, not just gather, but also scattered. So pray with me as we enter this new season that the changes we're making will not just be an external one, but also internal. There will be a continual change of our posture, priorities, and passion moving forward. Pray with me that this will become another defining moment for the church to pivot towards where God is leading us. I am excited and I'm hopeful for the things God has for us. Thank you for being flexible and for being willing to change. And I'm so honored and privileged to be a part of this family.